Great evening, everyone. Thank you so very much for joining us again on another exciting Upgrade Mastery just for you with Mr. Upgrade. Yes, this is Mr. Upgrade, and I'm super excited to have you join us again today. Yes, it's Friday, and this is Good Friday. Yes, I'm super excited that we're here again, and not just any other Friday, but the Good Friday. For those of you who are of the Christian faith, you know what that represents. This is the Friday that our Lord and Savior gets crucified, right? So a lot happened on Good Friday that changed the narrative for us as believers, right? And it's a solemn time for us as believers. But this is another Friday on the Upgrade Mastery just for you. And you know, we do this every Friday, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. And we basically get to just let down our hair, just share the experience of the week, the things that have stood out for us, challenges we may have faced, and how we have been able to overcome them, and what are the lessons that we've learned all through the week. So for me, this week has been amazing. How are you? How was your week? Tell me about your week before we get into our conversation today. Today we're going to talk about service. Yes, service. But before we get into service, you know how we do? We get to do a rundown of the things that we have shared through our belief system all through the week. You know, those of you who follow us here, you understand that we have our belief system that we get to do the review of them Mondays through Fridays, right? Before we get into service itself, right? But before we get into that, tell me, how are you? How was your week? What did you do this week? What were the things that stood out for you? What were the challenges you faced? And how were you able to overcome them generally, right? I want to know about your week. I really want to know about your week. Tell me about it. Like, what were the things that just stood out for you? What were the things that made sense to you? What were the things that, oh, you probably didn't like, you wish it never happened, but it did happen? But yeah, this is Friday, so it's time for us to unwind, let the head down, relax, look at the week in review, and take our learnings from all of the things that have happened so that we can move on and make progress, right? So tell me, how was your week? What did you do this week? What were the things that stood out for you? What were the experiences you had? For me, I had an amazing week. Like this week was phenomenal. So I had to facilitate a session for 3 days, and it was just wholesome. Yes, that's the word. It was just wholesome. Watching people experience transformation instantly. Like it's not 2 days later or 5 days later, instant transformation. It was just wholesome. That's the word to use, wholesome. Seeing people just learn, practice, see results from their learning. It just made a lot of sense, right? It just made a lot of sense for me this week. And it just also brought to mind something that I really pay attention to, right? Something I pay attention to that it brought to mind was the fact that the hand of God is upon your life, therefore you do big things effortlessly. Yes, the hand of God is upon your life, and therefore you do big things effortlessly. So this was just the literal expression of what happened this week for me in my training that I had for 3 days. It was a phenomenal experience, literally. It was a phenomenal experience. But it's not about me, about you. How was your week? How was your week? What did you do? Because it's Upgrade Mastery just for you. So, what did you do this week? What stood out for you? What was the thing that really made sense? What hit home for you this week? Right now, while I'm waiting for you to share the things that really stood out for you this week, I'd like us to look at some of the things that we talked about during the week, the review of our belief system during the week. So we started this week conversation on the belief system. We started it by talking about interest is reciprocated, right? You know, there's this saying that there are no permanent enemies, no permanent friends, just only permanent interests. And also, with that in mind, you must know that interest is reciprocated. So when you have interest in someone, they tend to also reciprocate that same kind of interest. So let's look at what we talked about in the belief system for the week. So we talked about, follow me closely. So we talked about those who have interest, those whose interest you have will reciprocate by having your own interest, because interest is reciprocated. Those whose interest you have will reciprocate by having your own interest, because interest is reciprocated. And we look at the story from Ruth and Naomi, right? You know, Ruth left everything literally to follow Naomi. So she put aside her own personal interest and she followed Naomi. But then at some point, Naomi said, "Is it not good that we help you find a husband?" Naomi now had the interest of Ruth at heart, right? And you see that in the book of Ruth, chapter 2, right? That just shows you that those whose interest you have over time will now have your interest. And that tells us that interest is reciprocated, right? And we said that there are three simple reasons interest is reciprocated. Number one, diligent service. Number two, unbroken faithfulness. And number three, complete obedience. Now, with this, interest is always reciprocated when there is diligent service, when there is unbroken faithfulness, and where there is complete obedience. Anytime you find this, trust me, interest is always reciprocated. And I'll move on to say that when you are interested in people, the people you are interested in will reciprocate. When you are interested in people, the people you are interested in, they will reciprocate, because interest is reciprocated, right? And then we said, do to others what you will want to be done for you, and soon enough, they will do it for you. Easy peasy, right? Then went on to say that faithfulness and diligence never goes unrewarded. Faithfulness and diligence never goes unrewarded. And then we went on to say that once you have the interest of others as though it is yours, life has a way it brings others to have to handle your interest like theirs too, because interest is reciprocated. And then we concluded that conversation by saying, seek to have the interest for others, and others will be interested in you, which makes life all the more interesting. It's all about interest. But nevertheless, interest is reciprocated. Now, we went on to talk about, after that, we went to talk about how to show interest. Now we know that interest is reciprocated. There's a way to show interest, which you must be aware of. How to show interest. And we said, interest is not what you say, it is what you show by commitments and sacrifices that you make. Did you get that? Interest is not what you say, it is what you show by the commitment and the sacrifices that you make. Now, when you're committed and you make sacrifices, it shows your interest, not just what you're saying. Now, you can say, I am interested, doesn't mean you are interested. It is when your commitment and your sacrifices show, that's when you're truly interested. I went on to say that Naomi told her two daughter-in-laws, Ruth and Orpah, and told them to go back to their homes, go back to their parents. She's not going to be able to give them any child anymore. They've lost their husbands, who were her sons, and all of that. While Orpah decided and went back, Ruth chose to stay with Naomi. Ruth said, wherever you go, I will go. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God. Where you die, there I want to die and also be buried. Ruth, at this point, was showing interest in Naomi. She was showing interest. She was willing to sacrifice anything she had known before now, everything she had known before now, and go with Naomi. Right? And we said there are three simple ways to show interest. Number one, your commitment. Number two, your sacrifice. And number three, your service. These are three simple ways that you can show interest: your commitment, your sacrifice, and your service. And went on to say here that interest is not shown until you have gone over and beyond already and you are still willing to do more. Interest is not shown until you have gone over and beyond already and you are still willing to do more. That is interest. Right? And went on to also say that never confuse excitement for interest shown. Someone can be excited, doesn't mean they are interested. Someone can be excited, does not mean that they are interested. Never forget that. Excitement doesn't mean interest shown. It doesn't. Right? Sometimes the best way to show interest is to have an ownership mentality about what you're interested in. The best way to show interest is to have an ownership mentality about what you're interested in. And we went on to explain and said that seek first to show interest, and then you will attract interest. Remember, interest is reciprocated. And we concluded that conversation by saying many things can be faked, but how you show interest can never be fake. You either show it or you don't show it. You can't fake showing interest. You can't fake show. Nobody can fake showing interest. And then we went on from that and we went into the conversation on serve. Serve. And we said that life is measured in its donation, not in its duration. When you serve, it is a privilege and an opportunity to make donation to life. Life is measured not in its duration, but in its donation. And when you serve, it is a privilege and opportunity to make donation to life. And we also still looked at Ruth again. Ruth took the opportunity to serve Naomi, even though it meant her giving up her own desires. Ruth made a choice to leave her people in Moab and return back to Israel with Naomi. Oprah didn't make that decision. She went back to her people, but Ruth made the decision to stay with Naomi. Right? And then even when they got to Israel, Naomi told Ruth what she expected her to do, and Ruth did everything she has been told. You see, sometimes when you serve, you lose the right to demand the condition you are expected to comply to. Whatever you are told to do when you serve, you do it diligently and faithfully. I went on to say there are three simple reasons to serve. Three simple reasons to serve. Number one, it is a privilege and an opportunity. To serve is a privilege and an opportunity. Number two, it is part of contribution and donation when you serve. It's part of contribution and donation when you serve. And number three, it never goes unrewarded. That's why you must serve. As you serve, it never goes unrewarded. And went on to look at a few things, and we said no one ever at a disadvantage when he or she serves, because as they serve, they become better. No one ever is at a disadvantage when they serve. Because when they serve, they become better. And we're going to talk about when you have the heart to serve, you always see the opportunities available to serve. When you have the heart to serve, you always see the opportunities that are available to serve. You see, you are not a fool because you serve, but you always become fool when you serve. You are not a fool when you serve, but you always become fool when you serve. And you see, as you serve, you understand the principle that you reap what you sow. You may not reap where you sow, but you always reap what you sow. And you see, serve because life always rewards all who serve faithfully and diligently. So serve. Very important that you serve. So please serve. The next we went on to look at during the week was serve diligently. So it's not just enough to serve, you must also know how to serve diligently. Are you still here? Is this making sense? You must also know how to serve diligently. It's very important. Very, very important. You see, you can serve and not serve diligently. But what is really expected of you whenever you serve is to always serve diligently. Now, you see, also, we looked at the Ruth's conversation. Ruth did not only serve Naomi, but she served Naomi diligently. Did it ever occur to you that when Boaz saw Ruth for the first time, he said he had heard all about her? Boaz said, I've heard about you. I've heard all about you. I heard the way you treated your mother-in-law after the death of her husband, and how you have left your father and mother and the land of your birth and have come to live among a bunch of total strangers. Diligent service. And he said, God rewards you well for what you have done, and with a generous bonus besides from God, to whom you have come seeking protection under his wings. Now, this is an indication that Ruth serves diligently because the word of her service has spread around like wildfire, and it was known by everyone. When you serve diligently, it has a voice that speaks loud and clear. I would say that there are three simple reasons to serve diligently. Number one, it improves and refines you. It improves and refines you. Number two, it is going over and beyond all the time. When you serve diligently, you're going over and beyond all the time. And number three, it helps you become significant and relevant. Nothing helps you to become significant and relevant like when you serve. Nothing else helps you to become significant and relevant like when you serve. And you see, sometimes until you serve diligently, you may never really stand out from the crowd. Until you serve diligently, you may never really stand out from the crowd until you serve diligently. Right? Unfortunately, many people would rather do eye service than to actually do diligent service or to serve diligently. They would rather do eye service than to serve diligently. And remember, I told you that there are 4 types of service. There is eye service, there is lip service, there is faith service, and there is faithful service. Serve diligently, that is faithful service. You see, when you learn to serve diligently, the real reward is not actually what you get, but who you become. When you learn to serve diligently, the real reward is not actually what you get, but who you become. Who you become. That's the real reward of serve diligently. Who you become. I wanted to say every day is an opportunity to serve diligently. So make the most of it and watch how service transforms your life. And we went on to say this, that the truth is, until you start to serve diligently, you really have not started serving. Until you start to serve diligently, you really have not started serving. And then we went to the final conclusion, belief system for the week, which is on Friday, and we talked about service. And that, interestingly, is going to be our conversation for today, service. And we said service is the giving up of yourself faithfully towards the attainment of a goal without expectation of reward. Service is the giving up of yourself faithfully towards the attainment of a goal without the expectation of reward. So you notice in scripture that when the master in the parable of the talents gave talents to his servants, to one he gave 5, to the other he gave 2, and to one he gave 1. Now the master gave them according to their abilities, but the master did not tell them what to do with what he had given them. It was through service they knew what they had to do. So the one who was given 5 went to put it to service and got 5 more. The one who was given 2 went to put it to service and got 2 more. The one who was given 1 did nothing and also got nothing in return first, but also he got punished for doing nothing. So you see, there's always a punishment for doing nothing. Now people feel like, oh, as long as I'm not doing anything, it doesn't really concern me. No. There is still a punishment for doing nothing. There's still a consequence for doing nothing. There's the consequence for doing nothing. I went on to say that there are 3 simple reasons for service. Number 1, it helps you to grow. Service helps you grow. Number 2, it helps you evolve. Service helps you evolve. And number 3, it helps you mature. As you said, service helps you to mature. So 3 reasons. It helps you grow, it helps you evolve, it helps you mature. And we can say that it helps you become a gem, which is to grow, to evolve, and to mature. And went on to say that service is what will give you a voice and also allow your voice to be heard. So you see, service gives you a voice. Service allows your voice to be heard. You see, nothing helps you to become more selfless and more people-centered like service. You see, the heart of the matter is that it is a matter of the heart, and the heart must be a heart of service. Did you get that? The heart of the matter is that it's a matter of the heart, and the heart must be a heart of service. And like I said, no service is ever a waste. No service is ever a waste. And you see, sometimes it all comes down to service. It all comes down to service. right? It all comes down to service, right? It comes down to service. So let's look at service right now. Let's really look at service. Now, let's look at service. SERVICE, service. Let's look at it. What does that really mean? No, we've been talking about it so far. What does that really mean? Thank you so much for this. Someone says, e-learning global says, serve diligently. Then he also said, when you serve diligently, it has the voice that will speak for you. Exactly, right? Exactly. Now, service. SERVICE, service, right? Because we need to explain this so that you can really understand it, right? Now, so the S in service is sacrifice. Now, listen to this. Listen to this. There is no form of service that does not demand sacrifice. No form of service. There's no form of service you can render in today's world that does not demand a level of sacrifice. So if there is no sacrifice, you've not started service. Why? Because it's not always going to be convenient. Most of the time, it's going to be inconveniencing. It's going to be stressful. It's going to be difficult. It's going to demand that you make a sacrifice if you truly want to serve. But if you don't want to serve, it's okay. There won't be any sacrifice. But if you truly want to serve, it starts out with a sacrifice. You know, in Genesis, God told Abraham that your son, your only son, the one whom you love, I want you to offer him as a sacrifice. I told you that the sacrifice is a demand of service. If you're going to serve anywhere and you're not willing to make sacrifice, you're not ready to serve. That's just the truth. If you're going to be of service anywhere you find yourself, whether it's in your school, in your church, in your office, in your organization, in your business, if you're going to find yourself to be of service, that is never going to be possible if you don't make sacrifice. So service actually begins with sacrifice. So if you're unable to make a sacrifice, it's already a clue you cannot actually be of service. Nobody actually can do service from their comfort zone. Never done. It's never possible. No one can do service from their comfort zone. There must be the sacrifice that you have to make. So let's say you are in school, for instance, right, and you have an ambition to graduate with the first class. Now, that ambition would not happen on its own. That ambition will not happen on its own. So how would that ambition happen? You have to make the sacrifice. You have to always be in the library. You always have to be reading. You always have to put in the work. You have to make the sacrifice for that ambition to become a reality. That is where service starts from. Service starts out with a sacrifice. What is the sacrifice you're willing to make? If you're going to serve anyone, you're going to be of service to anyone, you must be aware of the sacrifices that you're going to be making. Because there is no service without sacrifice. None. Literally, there is no service without sacrifice. If anyone tells that, oh, you can serve, you don't have to make any sacrifice, the person is not telling you the whole truth. Because service starts out with sacrifice. You know, in Genesis 12, when God called out Abraham, he said, come out from your father's house, come out from your nativity to a land that I will show you. That's service, that's sacrifice. So he left all that he has used to. He left his father, he left everything he's used to begin the service. Right? So the S in service is sacrifice. So every service begins with sacrifice. Now, the E in service is excellence. You cannot do service with mediocrity. You literally cannot do service with mediocrity. You cannot do service average. I often tell us that average don't win awards. Average don't win awards. There's never an award for an average person. No. Service is about excellence. The E, the first E in service is excellence. If you cannot do it with excellence, you are not yet in service. You are just a joke. Like they say, am I a joke to you? So if you can't do it with excellence, you are a joke. You're not ready for service. Because service cannot be done outside of excellence. There are a lot of mediocres all around. The reason why that is possible is because they themselves have not learned excellence. And because you cannot give what you don't have, you cannot expect excellence from someone who's a mediocre. He will only give you what he has or what she has. If mediocrity is what he or she has, that's what they will bring to you. So as much as you want them to serve and they are not excellent, they are not serving. And for them to serve with excellence, they have to become excellent because you cannot give what you don't have. You know, there's the saying that you teach what you know, you reproduce who you are. Let that sink in. You teach what you know, but you reproduce who you are. Service. The first E in service is excellence. You must become a person of excellence. You must commit to excellence. If you are going to serve anywhere you find yourself, you must understand that service must be done with excellence, not with mediocrity, not with average, but with excellence. Because trust me, a lot of people really, really crave excellent service. Not just any service, but a service that is excellent. And that's why the second E in service is excellence. So if you're going to serve, you must always remember this. I must serve with excellence. Even if it's just 2 persons, I serve them with excellence. Even if it's 100 persons, I serve them with excellence. Regardless of the number, I bring excellence to my service every day, every time. No questions asked. Are we still here? So you must understand that the E in service is excellence, the first E. The R in service is reward. You know, I told us earlier that there are 4 kinds of service. There is eye service, there is lip service, there is faith service, and then there is faithful service. Now, interestingly, all of this service gets rewarded. You see, even in the parable of the talent that Jesus was using to explain, that the man had 3 servants. To one he gave 5, to another he gave 2, and to another he gave 1 according to their abilities. And trust me, the man, when he came back from his far country, asked for accounts from all the servants. So the one who he gave 5 brought 5 more. And he told him, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Now enter into your rest. The one who he gave 2 brought 2 more. And he did the same thing. Rewarded him. Well done, thou good and faithful servant, come into your rest. The one who he gave 1 also showed up with the 1. And he said that I know that you're a hard man. You like to reap what you did not sow. And then the man told him, yes, since you know I'm a hard man, I like to reap what I don't sow. Why didn't you put the money in the usury, at least in the treasury? At least it would get interest, right? So in this story, all of the servants were rewarded. All of the servants were rewarded. And interestingly, the servant who did nothing, what he was actually given was taken back from him, and then he was sent to where there is darkness, weeping and gnashing of teeth, because there is a reward that comes with service. So you serve faithfully, there is well done. You don't serve faithfully, you get punished. Bottom line is that there is a reward. You do good, there's reward. You do bad, there is reward. Whatever you do, there is reward. So when it comes to your service, always remember this: there is reward to your service. And then remember what I always tell us: you may not reap where you sow, but you always reap what you sow. So the main factor is the what you sow, not necessarily where you sow, because there is always reward for service. And I told us earlier that the reward for service is not what you get, but who you become. Are we still together? The reward for service is not what you get, but who you become, the person you become. That is the first reward for service. The person that you become. Not what you get, but who you become. That's the reward for service. There's a reward for service. And then the V in service is value. For every service, there is value. For every service, there is value, which means your service must be beneficial. It must be of help. It must be a solution. There must be value that your service is rendering. So, let's say you're in a group chat, for instance. It's not just enough to be in the group chat. What is the value of your presence in the group chat? Do you contribute? Do you participate? Do you show that you are online? If you don't do any of these things, it's as good as you are in the cemetery. Many group chats for some people are like free burial grounds, because they are just there and like they are dead while they are there. But they are alive. Why? Because they do not understand that with service, you must bring value. Your service must be value. Your service must be beneficial, must be of help, must be a solution. Your service must be value. If there is no value, then your service is not needed. If there's no value, your service is not needed. Your service must be value. Must be value. That's what makes a difference, guys. Service must be value. Right? Your service must be value. So the V in service is value. What's the value that your service brings? What's the value that your service brings? Your service, is it beneficial? Is it of help? Is it a solution? What's the value of your service? Is the value of your service that gives you value. I'll say that again. It is the value of your service that gives you value. So you want to have value? Look at the quality of your service. Is it value? Is the value of your service that gives you as a person value. The V in service is value. Value. Now, the I in service is intentional. Your service is intentional. You see, why it is intentional is the fact that you can't do it haphazardly. You can't do it without a goal in mind. You can't do it without a purpose in mind. So your service must be intentional. I'm here for a reason. I am serving for a reason. Your service must be intentional. You see, Ruth told Naomi, entreat me not to leave you, according to the King James Version. He says, do not beg me to leave you. Do not compel me to leave you. For wherever you go, I will go. Your God will be my God. Your people will be my people. Wherever you die, that is where I want to die and be buried. At that point, what Ruth was saying, her service to Naomi was intentional. Service must be intentional. It must be intentional. If it is not intentional, then it is not really service. It must be intentional. Ruth was intentional about her service to Naomi. She didn't mince words. She was clear. She was definitive. She was intentional. She knew this was what she had signed up for. There's no going back. You must be intentional with your service. Whatever area, whatever category you find yourself in life, you must be intentional with your service. Knowing that your service demands you to be intentional. That's why it is a problem when you see young people who want everyone in the world to mentor them, every seemingly successful person in the world to mentor them. They seem to forget that service is intentional. Let's say you have 10 different amazing people who are mentoring you. How do you truly serve all 10? Think about it. Let's say you have 10 amazing people who are your mentors. Now, how do you, as a single person, serve all the 10 with intentionality? It's going to be Herculean. It's not even going to be possible. That's why Jesus said you cannot serve two masters. You will either hate one or love the other. You cannot serve God and Mammon. Right? Your service has to be intentional. You can't have everyone that you know that is successful to become your mentor. Because how are you going to submit yourself to their mentoring? You know, it's weird how people think that because you have someone's contact on Instagram, on Twitter, or even the WhatsApp number, then suddenly that person is your mentor. It's just weird. Mostly this happens all the time. Say, oh, it's my mentor, my mentor. Does the person even know you? Because the truth is, service is intentional. You can't call someone your mentor and the person doesn't know you to be his or her mentee. Because you have not been intentional with your service. Service is intentional. It's intentional. And then the C in service is consistency. You must be consistent with your service. So it's not, oh, today I'm here, tomorrow I'm not here. No. When it comes to your service, there must be the level of consistency. Not today this, tomorrow that. No. Scrap that. Consistency. You must have consistency with your service. So which means you're serving consistently. You're serving religiously. You are consistent with your service. That's what makes your service valuable, because it's consistent. They can call on you any day and any time, and you will be available to show up and deliver. That is consistency. Not, oh, they call you today and you say, oh, I'm not around, I'm not in town, oh, I cannot make it. They call you tomorrow, oh, I'm not around. No. Service must be consistent. It must be consistent. Right? Okay, so we have some things that someone has said. Sunshine said, if you're going to serve with excellence. So true. If you're going to serve with excellence. And if you can't serve with excellence, it's okay. Go and learn it. If you can't serve with excellence, It's okay. Go and learn it. Go and learn it because excellence is learned. Excellence is learned. It is not follow come from birth. It is learned. Go and learn it. And as you learn, you practice, you become excellent. Right? Because practice makes progress. Practice makes progress. So as you learn, as you practice, you become excellent. Right? Because your service has to be with excellence. And then said the reward for service is not what you get, but who you become. Exactly. The reward for service is not what you get, but who you become. Yes, it's all about becoming. Service is all about becoming, right? Because through service, you get to grow, you get to evolve, you get to mature, right? So it's not about what you get, but about who you become. Because now you have grown, you've evolved, and you've matured, right? And then she also said here that it is the value of your service that gives you value. Exactly. It is the value of your service that gives you value. Now, these are some of the things I've shared. She's just highlighting the point that stood out for her, and I really appreciate that. Right? So the C in your service is consistency. How to be consistent. You can't show up today and not show up next year. You can't show up today and then the next time you show up is months later. You have to be consistent with your service. Right? You have to be consistent with your service. And then the last E in service is empathy, which means that you serve people, you must have empathy towards them. Don't say, oh, it's their fault. Oh, they should have known better. Oh, I even want them. No, 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 no. If you're truly going to serve, you must serve with empathy. If you cannot serve with empathy, you have to go and learn empathy so that you can come back and be able to serve with empathy. See, the truth is this, you cannot even hide it. Cannot even hide it. Empathy is one of the skills for the future, and you will need it if you are going to be of service to anyone. You must be able to show empathy towards them. While you're serving them, you must be able to show empathy towards them. Right? The truth is this, people sincerely are going through a rough patch. So it's on you to have a little bit of empathy towards the people that come your way. Because that's one way it's easy for you to serve them. Because you see from the place of empathy, not from a place of sympathy, but from a place of empathy. And when you see it from that perspective, it becomes easy to put yourself in their shoes. It becomes easy for you to go beyond just sympathy towards them, but go the extra mile with them where you arrive at empathy together. Be there to hold their hand. Be there to walk them through the rough times. Be there to walk them through the fiery season. Be there to give empathy. That's another way that you serve. True empathy. True empathy. So service comes with empathy. Not apathy, not sympathy, but with empathy. Service should come with empathy. Knowing that as you're serving them, you are ensuring that they grow too, and not just plant and abandon them. No, no, no. You ensure that they grow. That's also part of the service. So you see, this is what service is about. For everybody who wants to become that person that serves, this is something that you must pay attention to. The S in service is sacrifice. You must be willing and able to make the necessary sacrifice because you are in service. You must be willing. Right? So the S in service begins with sacrifice. There's no other way around it. No other way around it. Anyone who truly has served or who truly is serving will always see the level to which sacrifice must be made. Otherwise, you're not serving. Otherwise, you're not serving. Sometimes you're serving people and then they place responsibilities that seemingly look like burdens on you. And you have to make the sacrifice to take care of those responsibilities. That's sacrifice. That's sacrifice. So the S in service begins with sacrifice. You must be willing to make sacrifice, right? The first E in service is excellence. So now I've made the sacrifice. I must now continue to be excellent at what I do. Because the sacrifice will make no sense if you do not do it with excellence. Right? I'll say that again. The sacrifice will make no sense if you do not do it with excellence. It's important that as you serve, remember that this service that I'm rendering, it must be done with excellence. If it's not going to be done with excellence, I would encourage you to step back, go prepare more till you are able to do it with excellence. Don't serve with mediocrity. Don't ever. Don't serve with mediocrity. Don't ever. Why? It's important that you serve with excellence. Excellence is the goal. You serve with excellence, not with mediocrity, but with excellence. And then the arrow in service is reward. You already told us every service is rewarded, whether it's eye service, whether it's lip service, whether it's face service, or whether it is faithful service. Every service is rewarded. So understand that the service you do, good or bad, you will be rewarded. Every service you render, you will be rewarded. And I told us, when it comes to reward, you may not reap where. Take note of that. You may not reap where you sow, but you will always reap what you sow. So you do service with excellence. You do service with excellence because there is a reward for the service. There's a reward for the service. There's always a reward for service, right? And then all service must be valued. Your service must be beneficial. It must be of help. It must be a solution. Your service will not make any sense if it is not valued. Yes. If the service is not valued, by that I mean if it is not beneficial, if it is not of help, if it is not a solution, it is of no value. So your service must have value. And then we said that your service must be intentional. You must be intentional about how you go about service, not haphazardly, not anywhere but left face. No, you have to be intentional. When it comes to service, you don't roll dice for it. No. You don't spin the wheel for it. No, you are intentional about it. You're intentional about it. You're intentional about it. Why? Because service, oh my God, service must be intentional. Not by mistake, not by chance, but it must be intentional. Very, very important. Your service must be intentional, right? And then the C is that your service must be consistent. So you don't start today, quit tomorrow, start the next day, quit the day after. No. Your service must be consistent. So that really shows how amazing you are as a person when your service that you render to people are always consistent. So it's not like, oh, for one person you did so well, for another person you did so little. No. And then next person you did so average. No. Service is consistent. Never lose that thing that helps your service to be consistent. Right? Never lose that thing that helps your service to be consistent. Right? Never lose it. Never lose it. Never lose the thing that helps your service to be consistent. And finally, service must be with empathy. Service must be with empathy. Service will not make any sense if there is no empathy whatsoever. Service must be with empathy. Right? Is this making sense? Service must be with empathy. You must serve empathetically. Service must be with empathy towards the one whom you serve, must be with complete empathy, being there for them to ensure that they get back on their feet again. Empathy. So if you are a person of service and you lack empathy, you need to go and work on yourself, because service truly comes with empathy. So I'm serving you not because I hope to gain anything from you, but because I have empathy towards what you're going through. You see, in the parable of the Good Samaritan, a man was beaten and left for dead, and then the priest came and passed by. The Levite came and passed by. But then it was only the Samaritan who saw him. He came down from his horse, he attended to his wounds, put him on his horse, and took him to an innkeeper and made some deposits for him, and told the innkeeper that he would come back to also check up on him. And if he had accrued more cost, he would offset it. Now that is empathy at its peak in service. That's empathy. Are you getting this? That is empathy. And you see that displayed by a good Samaritan. That's empathy. So service must be done with empathy. So guys, this is what we have come to share with you at this point, because we believe this will truly, truly be of help to you to understand what service is all about. And interestingly, this whole week, we have been talking about service in different dimensions, right? But this is a good place to wrap it all up, knowing that service is all about sacrifice, it's about excellence, it's about reward, it's about value, it's about intentionality, it's about consistency, and it's about empathy. This is what service is about. Yeah, this is what service is about. And if you truly want to be of service, you must understand these things. So you put them to work wherever you find yourself. I often tell this to people that principles are universal, but experiences are peculiar, right? So that lets you know that when it comes to service, the principle are universal. It's the same everywhere in the world. You make sacrifice, you do it with excellence, you get a reward, you must be valued, you must be intentional, you must be consistent, and you must do it with empathy. So all around the world, this principle remains true. But the experiences of this principle will now be peculiar to the region you are in the world. What a day. Someone asked a question, and we want to quickly take that question because we want to wrap up. So as a young person, where it seems like everyone seems to do things for what is in need for them, how do you navigate service without being perceived as a people pleaser or something of that sort? Right? So this is an amazing question. In a world where everyone seems to do things for what is the need for them, WIIFM, what is the need for me, right? How do you navigate service without being perceived as a people pleaser or something of that sort? And that's why we talked earlier about, thank you so much for that question, by the way. That's why we talked about the 4 kinds of service. We said there is the lip service, there is the eye service, there is the face service, there's the face service, there's the lip service, there's the eye service, and then there is the faithful service. So in a world like this, your focus should be on faithful service, because a lot of people are already doing eye service. A lot of people are already doing lip service. A lot of people are already doing face service. Let me quickly explain the difference. For eye service, the person is always there, showing up everywhere, just there, so he just knows what's happening, what's up to date. Like, he's just everywhere. It's eye service. But he's actually not doing anything, but he's just everywhere. It's eye service. And then there's the lip service. There's the one who's just always talking. He just yanny, 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 get yans from mouth. Just the yan, the yan, the yan, like you see in local parlance, right? He just talks. That's lip service. It's all talk. And that's why I encourage people that moving on, you should be malt, M-A-L-T, more action, less talk. More action, less talk, right? So, malt. So, the lip service is just the one who's talking, blah, 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 blah. Talking, yet doing nothing. All mouth, no action. And then there's the face service, the one who just always wants to show up looking like he's doing something, he's actually not doing anything. Face service, showing up looking like he's doing something, he's working, but he's actually not doing anything. It's face service. And then finally, the one who truly works. And many times, even at the background, not wanting to be seen. Faithful service. Right? Faithful service. So, guys, thank you so much for that question. Guys, what a day. A long day. Right? And doing this is me going the extra mile. If you notice that going to extra mile because I really need you to understand what service is about. It's about sacrifice. Doing this is not convenient for me right now, but I have to get it done. Sacrifice. I basically get to teach from my experiences because I want you to understand all of these things and see that if it's working for me, it can work for you. Right? In the session I had earlier today, I told the people that the excuse is something you must put away from your life because at its best, it is still a good reason for a bad result. You must put excuse away if you really want to become all that you can be. To put away the excuse of why you cannot serve or why you cannot be in service and now actually go and be in service. Because you see, this service is something that we all need and we all must be part of it. That's what makes a whole world of difference for us. So guys, thank you so much for being here. Remember, we always tell you, there's always more on the upgrade side of life. So we encourage you to always leave good behind so that you can upgrade. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you.